So back to the project. Please do your project. You guys are doing well. I in the meeting they were saying we have 5 best students. I said that's not true. Everybody is doing well. Even those who joined us 2 weeks later, everybody's doing well. We have everybody's a best student, especially in this back end. And whatever assignment you give, you see people getting it and doing it, all of them. So, but that being said, do the assignment, do work on your project, even if you don't understand anything, please, the project will help you to understand. Now, if there are some areas that you don't really understand while we are teaching in class, I bet me the project will help you understand. Now, the projects are not difficult; they are simple. So when you read them very well and you understand the instruction, they'll be simple that way. But like I said, you have the opportunity to bring in your question every week. So submit your codes. If you are going to be asking question in class next week, please make sure you submitted your codes. And I have gone through your codes. Then we can look through your codes together. You ask questions based on what you are asking. I can use it to explain to every other person who's working on that project. Now, the next one is those who will be working in groups. Now, for those who will be working in groups, first thing you need to have in mind is by the end of the project, you will be submitting, every one of you will be submitting the full project individually. It's not like you work on the project together and only one person is submitting on behalf of everybody. No. Everybody will submit the whole project individually, and I want it to be the same for everybody in that group. So if you're in group A and we assign you a project for group, I say group A, group 1, and we assign a project for group 1. Now in that group, all of the functionalities to build on that backend will be divided amongst you. So we might have one person build authentication, one person build the forgot password, one person build the other part, one person set up the the database and the schema and all of that. So we'll divide you all in your group, not me. You in your group will divide the task, and I'll make sure that everybody delivers their task. Don't do the task of another person. Divide the task. Now, by the end of the project, make sure you test the project and you see that it's working. Then from there, every single one of you will submit the codes individually from that project. That's how I want to know that you did your project, you are part of it, and you submitted at the end. Please, this is very, very important. Now, yes, they will clone the project, and that's what I'll be doing. I'll teach you how to clone the project. If you want to fork the project, no problem. I'll also teach you how to do that. And for the groups, and for those who will be working singly as individual, you have bigger problem. Sorry, you will not have a problem. What I mean is your codes will be gone through thoroughly. I will go through your codes thoroughly to the point where I will see the names of variables you defined. If you define the same variable that another person is using, and I know you are working as an individual, then there will be a problem in the project. I will assume you copied. If you copied, there will be no awarded backs for you if you copied. So, and that is why I'm not going to be allowing more than 3 or 4 persons work at the project. It's not like it's punishment. I just want to make sure that things that I didn't cover in the class because there's not too much time, we'll cover it using this project. That's just the goal. So we will answer the questions. We'll do everything to make sure you finish your project. That's all. So I want to believe nobody is going to copy. And also, if you pick the number that more than 3 persons or 4 persons have picked before you, will push you to another thing like that. So the project, I don't know if I'll go over the project today or not, but I'll leave that. Does anybody have a question about the project? Sorry about the network, Emmanuel. Sorry. Any question on the project or what we talked about? Adeyemi, do you want to say something? Hello, Adeyemi, are you there?
Hello, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Good Yeah.
for the opportunity. My simple question is, yesterday I was not having enough time in the class. I was just in and out, so I'm not too carried along. So I don't know the project yet, sir. Number one.
Okay.
Then
All
number
right.
two, I want to ask this question
Go
about
ahead.
.env file. If .env file will not be pushed to the GitHub, then how would the secret code, secret password, port number, and the rest we have enclosed in it, how will it function with the code if we are not pushing it into the cloud with the code, sir?
Okay. I will attend to that. I will attend to your question. So you can mute now. You can mute. So the first question is the project. Now, I haven't posted the project. I will post it on Google Classroom. I was supposed to do that before today, but I will do it maybe after today or after tomorrow's class. You will see the project. I will also post the names of those who are working on the project and what they are working on. And if you don't find your name, please don't need to panic. Just reach out to me and I will assign you one. So even if I don't post your name, you don't see it, just reach out to me. I will assign you one. And secondly, about the .env. Now, the .env, the reason why you are not pushing the .env to GitHub is one, I will explain what GitHub is today. Now, let's go ahead. GitHub is just like your bank. You know, everybody has a bank account. Now, before I used to hear you can save documents on banks. You can save documents to banks. You can save money. You can save any precious thing, something you don't want to get missing or get stolen. So that's what GitHub is like. That's your bank account. Now, even though it is also your bank account, it is also a community where people communicate. So you get the opportunity to safeguard things that are very precious to you, especially when they are projects. So you keep them there and they are safe. But you also have the opportunity of communicating with other persons. Let me open GitHub. I don't know if you can see my screen. I'll open GitHub now. The reason why I'm opening GitHub is to let's assume I want to build I'm just looking for an app, a simple website. Let me say I want to build a banking website. I am on GitHub, although this is my profile, but what I'm searching on here is the whole GitHub, So it's not like my own GitHub alone. For everybody who is on GitHub, these are people who are on GitHub that have built a website or a mobile app and pushed it to GitHub. So here we have this person, Zaki, online banking system with PHP and MySQL. JavaScript is in it, MySQL, CSS, HTML, and jQuery. You also have this person build this. Now, this means that I can have access to this Git repo. So if I click here, I will open this person's code, and this is the folder, this is the README, and then this is the SQL. If I open now, this is PHP. You may not really understand it, and this was done 7 years ago. So it means even though it was done 7 years ago, people still have access to it. And the reason why we have access to it is because this project is set on public. If you look here, you see that this project is set to be public. So it means anybody can see it if you search for it. And if that is possible, would you want to put now secret informations? Now, there are secret informations. Your codes, if you are paid to write a code, that code should remain secret. That's one. Your code should be secret, but there will be other people's secret informations, not your own secret information now. Your own secret information, if you want to share it, fine. If you want to keep it on private, fine. But you have, for example, a database password and username. That is the gateway to the password of so many persons that if compromised, a lot will go wrong. Now, even though you have the ability to set this GitHub to private, there are people you work with that can actually gain access to this thing. This project was done 7 years ago. Imagine if this person deployed this project here and put it on private, for example, put it on private, and the .env is here, and 7 years ago this person is no longer working with this company, but still has access to all of those informations. So it means if the company didn't do him very well on that part, he can actually do them something not good if he's not a good person. But now that secret information is not your own. That's what I'm trying to explain now. It's not your own. Even though you are the one that created it, generated it, it's not your own. Secondly, it is the gateway to so many other passwords. From those passwords, you also have access to people's information. So what we do is you don't push it to GitHub. Now, it's not like you don't deploy it online. When you go to the cloud, for example, which one will open faster? Let me go to Render. I use Render to teach, so I will teach you how to deploy to Render Cloud. Now, Render Cloud is the same thing with Heroku and so many others. I think I signed up with GitHub, and you must have a GitHub account so that you can be able to sign up. And these are backend projects that I have deployed, and you see when they were deployed. Okay, this is connected to a new. Okay. Is connected to a new. So this backend project, I can pick any one of these. For example, I click on this school axis, and clicking on school axis, you see here it has environment. Now this it has so many things here. The settings, the logs, and all of that. So the environment here is where you manually enter those codes. So it is going from your VS Code direct to the cloud. There is no in between. But the code that is running this back end is coming from where will I find that? Sorry, just a few minutes. I'm trying to find if I can find. It's actually coming from my GitHub. I'm looking for the place where, yeah, this is the GitHub. So it's coming from my GitHub here. So this is the code. Although this project is a paid project and is on private actually. So, but I don't. This one here is a free hosting. I think this was when I started with using it for free. So, but it's coming here, and there is no .env here. And you shouldn't have it here. It should go from VS Code direct to the cloud. That is that way, and that's all I'll say. I think I've opened this and I've shown you this. So I'll also teach you how to deploy to Render. From Render, you can deploy any other place you want. Okay. For now, the project, I haven't explained the project. I just explained the instructions for the project. Number one instruction is it's going to contain certain things I haven't done in class. So, but don't be afraid, don't be scared. Tackle it on. Start with the ones you know. It will start from the basics, the one you know how to do. Keep doing them until you get to the part where you are stuck. You always ask questions. But every week you'll be submitting my repo none on GitHub. You found it .env. I don't think so. Okay, maybe, but that's like a teach. Sorry, let me check that again. Render and here and here. Is there .env here? Is there .env here? Am I not seeing it? Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Because I was shocked to see it now. But sometimes if you deploy .env here and it was a mistake, fine. It could be a mistake. You go ahead and delete it. Now, .env will not do anything here. The cloud will not pick it from here. So if your .env is here, it's not going to be useful. It's not going to do anything here because it's not expected to be here. It's by mistake. So if you put it here, whenever you remember that you put it here, you can go ahead and delete it. It's not doing anything in your project if it is here. The only place it's needed in is when you go to the cloud where you deployed it, you come to the environment, you add all the environment variables. Now I think you have the ability to import all of them. Just import the secret file like that, import it, and it will add everything. And also you can add your .env file and it will import everything for you. You are going to do this, like I said, I will not be going deeper into any other thing. We've covered everything. I'll just be doing finishing touches, and one of the finishing touches is how to deploy your project and get a URL like this. So you get this kind of URL that people can make requests to your backend and get response. So for the project, try not to copy anybody. And also, if you notice that your name is not in the number you picked, please don't be offended. There's no winch hunt or anything, just random mix up like that. So that's by the way. Now for the groups, I would have loved a lot of persons to be in groups, but if you are not in groups, no problem. You want to do it alone. The reason why I wanted it to be in groups is the project can be large for one person to finish up. I don't know how fast you can be, but you have just 3 weeks to finish up everything. So that being said, we can go on to what we have for today. We want to build this project. You have already seen how to build these endpoints, but we want to build them using the MVC rule. MVC rule. And somebody was suggesting if we are going to start from scratch when we are building MVC rule, and that is what I want to do now. So do you have any question before we start? We are just doing finishing touches. We're not building much, but if you have questions, please ask your question so that we can attend to it while we are working on what we are working on. Okay, it might be a what is it called? A dummy repo or any kind of repo like that. But any repo that is important, you shouldn't have the .env there. Any repo you have people's file and something there. Yes, I will teach you about Git. That's the next thing after .env, and then we'll talk about how to deploy the project. Any questions? All right, since there's no questions, let's continue. Now, the first thing I want to do is create a folder for my project. Sorry, my hands are wet. I don't know why. Or is it? Okay. Here. So I have my project opened. The next thing I want to do is to initialize the project. npm init -- yes or -y, anyone. And I have my .env. The next thing I want to do is to install dependencies. So I would say I may not use everything, but I'm just building MVC rule for you to see, so that from there you can start building. And of course, this project you have to set it up using the MVC. So it shouldn't be it must follow the MVC rule. If you go to interviews or see project online, you will see. Sorry, let me zoom in. They put a requirement that a developer that knows the MVC rule, you should know how to build project with MVC. I think this is better. They relate to the backend, being that, like I said, all of this cloud computing and all of these things, they have different purposes. The Google Cloud, the Azure, they all have different purposes, but a part of it concerns the back end. Reason being that sometimes when you build your project may not have too much traffic. You can have only 100 persons or 200 persons visiting it. But after a while, that project can get large. You have 1,000 persons running on transactions on daily, or doing something on daily basis, or even if it's a news blog, reading blogs on daily basis. It's a social media app. You have millions of persons logged into your social media at the same time. So at some point, you will have so much traffic. The same way you're having traffic, the same way you are getting security issues. You are getting so many issues. So, and all of these things cannot be handled in your VS Code at that point because you've passed the development stage. You are now, your project is now on the cloud. You need somebody who has a good knowledge about clouds, cloud and everything about the cloud to manage the project from that point. So your own part is to build the project so that people can start using it. Now, the DevOps, the development and operations guy, his own work begins after you have deployed your project as a backend and possibly hand over. You may still be there to make changes and everything, but their own project begins where your own stops or where your own ends. So, but as a backend person, it's good to also have idea about cloud, anyone, but it's not compulsory. At least the basics of deploying your project, that is very, very important. Any other thing, for me, I do backend separately, and anything that contains DevOps, you have to do it separately. I don't merge the two of them. They are not the same thing. So I also don't encourage you to do that. So cloud, having knowledge about the clouds and all of that is important, but that's not the issue here. You need to know how to build the project and deploy it first before you talk about cloud. So the cloud, the security and everything comes in later. No, you don't download the MVC. The MVC is a pattern for which you set up your backend. So what we are doing first, we had to set up our project and initialize npm that got us this. So you're not installing anything for MVC. I want to install basic dependencies, Express, which one again? Mongoose, which one again? I may not install everything. I just want to build a simple basic project so that you see it. Mongoose, what do I need? Do I need node? No, not node more now. What else? Express. I've also talked about cause. So let me explain, let me add cause. For the person who was asking cause. Yes, thank you. .env. This is cause, is new. I will explain cause and you see it. What else? I think that's all. I'll stop there. And Express is not found. Why? Is this not the spelling of Express? Express. Okay, I forgot to do yarn add. So if you are using npm, you need to do this thing. So yarn add, and then it will install. So I have Express. I have, thank you very much, Francis. Thank you. So I have them installed now. And the next thing I want to do, what else? The first thing is to set up my script in the package.json. I want to believe you already know that. I will set up two scripts. One is for the start, and then one will be for dev. And dev, you can call the dev any name you want. I haven't installed NodeMon, so now these ones are installed as normal dependencies. The reason why I didn't add NodeMon here is that NodeMon is a dev dependency. That's what we're doing. We're not adding MVC to anything. We're not. That's what we are doing. We're building the project following the MVC rule. So it's nothing new. It's just about folder structures and how you structure your functions and components and all of that. So that's what we're building, the MVC. I want to install NodeMon now. So I will say yarn add -d NodeMon. My terminal has MVC. This MVC is the folder I created. The name of my folder is MVC. So that's why you see this MVC here. It has nothing to do with this project. The project is just the normal project. Yeah, it's just the normal project. So I have installed NodeMon as a dev dependency. Did it install? I didn't even check. It says done node more, but I'm not seeing node more here. I think I failed to save packages. Compare. Now this is because I was trying to edit my package.json file while I was installing dev dependency. So now I have two package.json file. I want to compare and choose which one I need. So this is the one I want, and resolve. But that has gone out, so I'll have to install that again. It happens. I think I forgot to take note of that. So is it installed now? Yes, I have it now. So this is nodemon. The name of my file is going to be index.js, so I'll keep that. And I want to believe you already know this one. It doesn't have to be index.js. You can call it app.js or any other thing you want, index.js. Okay, that's for dependencies. The next thing is going to be creating the index file, index.js, like that. So now when it comes to MVC, the M stands for model. So you create a folder outside and you call it models, maybe models or model, anyone you want. Yes, I want to believe that I am recording this. Let me confirm. Yes, it's being recorded. Now the second one is the views. That's where I said there are some backend developers that write Node.js or backends to render HTML. So, but we're not rendering HTML. We're just building RESTful APIs. So we'll skip the views. We're not creating views, but instead of views, you will be creating routes like this. So you create route. The next one you want to create is the C. The C stands for controllers, like this. So this is the folder structure, or this is what it means to have MVC. MVC means the folder structure. Now, when you are doing MVC, your functions will be in the controller, all your functions. Your schemas and models will be in the model, all of them. Your endpoints, the endpoint will be in the route, all of them. So that is what it means to have MVC. But in addition, you can create another folder for utils, and you create another folder for middlewares, like this. Then the project is complete. Any question before we continue? Yeah, you can say this. Yes, you can. But people call it MVC. It's still the same thing. You just know that you're not creating views. The views is the HTML, the front end part of it. But that's not what we're doing. We're doing RESTful API, so we'll not be creating views. But any questions so far on this folder structure? This is what I expect to see in your project, like this. Now, the most important things here, the controller, the model, and the routes. If you are using middlewares, your middleware should be inside the middleware folder. If you are using any other function, now some persons call this thing, some people call it utils or helpers, whatever you want to call it. So some people call it utils, some people call it helpers or help. So what it just means is extra functions that you don't want to write in your controllers. Any other function, any other thing that is doing for you, you don't want to write in your controller. So any question on this structure? This is the MVC structure. Okay, now this is the controllers. I want to believe you've seen us build functions, and we call it functions to handle this, handle that, handle the other one. All of those functions will be inside here, the controllers. The middlewares, the validation, validate this, validate that, all of them will be inside here, the middlewares. The second one is the third one is the model, your schemas, your models, all of them, as many as they are, they will be inside here in your project. Everybody will be creating more than one schemas, more than one model. So all of them will be here. This is the route, the end point, your end point, all those / user / what is it called? / anything, your end points, they will all be here in the route. Then the utils or helpers or utilities, whatever you want to call it, you can call it utilities. I do call it utils or utilities, anyone. But some persons call it helper. They are extra functions. Maybe functions to take a date and convert it to something else. Function to take a string and divide it together. Function to take an array and join them together. So any other extra functions you want to use, you put all of them here. This is your app, the index.js. That is the main file that should be outside of folders. Because when you deploy this project, the cloud is looking for only this file, no other file. It's looking for only this file. Yes, we are going to be doing that. We are going to add it and then we import it in our file. We're going to do that. Yes, I need to create .env. Thank you very much. I forgot, but you need to create .env. You need to do that one. Express router. Yes, we are using Express router. We're going to be using Express router for our routes. Any more questions before we go ahead? This structure is what we call the MVC structure. And this is the structure I want to see in your project, like this. All right. So no more questions. We'll continue with setting up our server. Yes. You need .gitignore. Thank you. .gitignore. Yes, you need .gitignore. And definitely we are going to do .gitignore because we are going to be pushing with Git. We'll be talking about Git and I'll close it. So first, I want to set up const express is equal to require express. That's the first one. The second one is .env. I'll say const .env is equal to require it should be called, did I not install .env? Why am I not getting, I'm not getting IntelliSense? Why? Let me confirm that I actually installed .env. Yes, I did. So what's wrong? All right, and then configure it directly. The next one is const my app is going to be running on the express function like this. The next thing will be app.listen on a port that I'm going to be defining the port in my .env file. I'll set my port to be 5000. You know what? Let's do something different. 8081. Save it. Here I have what's this one? The port. So const port is equal to process.env.port or 8000. Okay, here app.listen on port, then run this function clg server running on port. So I'll save that. My server is here. I want to confirm that it's actually running. So I will use an external terminal. Yarn. Sorry, let me use npm. Npm run dev nodemon server running. So the next thing is I want to connect my database. So you can connect your database here if you want. But most times I like connecting my database externally. And how do I do that for you now? Okay, how do I do that? I like doing it externally. So I'll create DB. You can call it anything. I can call this connect. You know what? Let me just call it index dot. No, let me call it DB file. Anyone. DB file.js. So here I want to bring in Mongoose. I'm sure I installed Mongoose because Mongoose is equal to what is it called again? Required. Sorry, I have been working Mongoose, and I want to believe you know why we're bringing in Mongoose. So what I want to do is I don't want to do it normally. I will create a function. When I mean normally, the other way we did it, called connectDB, and make it to be an async function. And I want to use try catch. Sorry. Here I want to console log error connecting to DB. It's not before. Do we put our database in the models? This is the function, the model folder. Okay, why DB separate from the model? I want to understand what you mean. Why DB is different from the model folder? Are you saying we can connect our database inside the model folder? If you want to do that, you can put this file here. If you want, if you want to do that, you can. I want to understand what you mean. So, but that aside, so here I want to say mongoose dot connect, and I'll be using. Yes, it refers to anything relating to the database, but what we are doing now is a function that connects to the database. If you want to put this file inside here, you are free to do that. Absolutely, you are free to do that if you want, but sometimes I like keeping it external like that. So, and keeping it external doesn't mean it will run on its own. You will still import it here. So what I want to do is I want to keep this file clean. It will be empty, not much code here. So that's why I'm taking it off. But if you want to put it here, it's fine. If you also want to put it in your models folder, it's also fine. Where was I? Here, mongoose.connect. Now, I may be using .env in this file. .env is equal to require. So anywhere, the reason why I'm importing it here is not because I have to, but for some of you, you must. Depending on the system you're using, you have to import .env and configure it in any file where you are referencing the environment. Process.env, I don't have that yet, do I? So I need to get MongoDB URL. So I will need to get, I have a connection string. There's no point going that much. What I can do is find that connection string is on this backend, right? Now, if you want to get a new connection string, you are free to do that. It's going to be here. So I want to copy this connection string to save us time. So I'll replace it here. And the name is this MongoDB URL. So here I'll say connect to MongoDB URL. And if it connects, there's no point adding dot. Then I'll just put a console log MongoDB connected. Sorry. You can add the keyword await here too, because it takes a while to connect, so that this one doesn't run until it has connected. So that's why I'm adding this await keyword. So this function will be used outside. You have to export it too. You don't have to go through this process if you don't want to, but I want to keep everything clean. So that is why I'm going through this process like this. So I will save this. This is the function to connect to my database. I will bring it here. When my app is connected, I want to dot then. You know what? No need. I'll just put it directly here. Here, connect to database. Comments. I just hope I remember everything. Function to connect to DB. So here, import. No, let me just call it function to connect to DB. Function to connect to DB. So the name is connect DB. You need to import connect DB here. Const connect DB is coming from require ./db/db file and save it. So here we copy it and we put it here and invoke it. So instead of writing the MongoDB connection here, wait, we have so many questions. Okay. If you are connecting to a database like SQL, you also have password depending on the SQL. If you're using MySQL or any of those PHP admin, any of those ones, you also have passwords. You do. They have password, and it's not difficult to configure. You can just search it online, search anything online, you find there. It's the most important thing is knowing how to what would I call it? I don't want to use the word algorithms, but you understand the procedures that you need to connect to the database, and then you need to start listening. So the kind of database you are using doesn't really affect your knowledge as a backend developer. Now, some companies where you'll be working for may require you to use a different database. You need to start learning that database they're using, and which may not be difficult. You can do it on the job, or maybe by when you hear about it, you just learn about the database and you integrate it into what you're doing and replacing MongoDB. So that shouldn't be an issue for you, but majority of project that you want to build with Node.js will be going with PHP. Sorry, we'll be going with Node. Sorry, we'll be going with MongoDB. But those, are you serious now? Sorry. So for those who are coming from the PHP background, they are very used to SQL, MySQL. So that's why they ask for MySQL. But those of us who are good with JavaScript, we also go with MongoDB because we're also good with MongoDB. So if you are coding Node.js, the easiest backend to use and that can scale very well for large projects is MongoDB. That's why we use MongoDB. But you can use MySQL, and there are other databases that people prefer to MongoDB. It depends on the company you are working with, where you are. And also, if you are a backend person and you are asked to recommend, you recommend the database that you are very good with. That's also how it works. So every database, they're all good, depending on what you want to use, and depending on also the one you know how to use best. So I'll save this file, sorry, and then be sure that MongoDB is connected. Oh, I didn't write this big well. It has to be MongoDB connected. Yeah. So my MongoDB takes a while to connect. That's why you see it coming later. But you can write your function in a way that you want the, let's not go there. Let's leave that. So for now, I have my database, everything simple. So what I want to do is just put a simple endpoint here, just a simple one, app.get, sorry, app.get, and this will just be to tell you welcome to our backend. That's all, or welcome to whatever it is. Return res dot, why if I don't get IntelliSense, I'm getting too much. Res dot status 200 dot JSON, and the structure a message that will say, of course, welcome to Youth Tribe server or backend, anyone. And you can get a customized message and add that. So this is a simple backend. I want to use this to explain, explain how or what is expected in each of these files. From here to here, you see that the app is not added to it. From here to here is the route, goes into the route. Now this function from here to here, you see that this ending part here, this closing bracket is not added to it, goes into the controllers. Now this app.get, this app here remains in this file. It doesn't go out, it remains in this file. Yes, comment, we will do it. We'll also comment it out. So we have this and database is running. The first thing we want to do is, I want to believe I have, let me open Postman. I want to believe that I have an endpoint to get all users. I just want to see what that endpoint is. Let's be sure. Youth Tribe here. To get all users. This is to get all users. So let's build an endpoint to get all users. Like I said, I will build it here, then we'll remove it. App.get /users, and what will I call the function? Just put the function like that. And here you're supposed to accept the request and the response object. The request and the response object. So we don't have a schema yet. In the models, of course, you know that you need to create a schema here. I'll call this users model.js. In the users model, I can bring in, sorry, let me be sure that I don't have questions. Isaac, are you on this call? Sorry, I didn't see that message earlier. Isaac, are you on this call? All right. Sorry, I didn't see your message earlier. So back to setting up. First, I need you know what? Let me just import Mongoose. There are two ways to do this. It doesn't mean that the way you are doing it is wrong or is the best, but just the way you are choosing to do it. That's all. Because user schema is equal to new mongoose, sorry, not capital letter, mongoose dot schema, and inside here I want to define not much. Email is going to be a type of string, and required through whatever. So duplicate this a few times. Email and what? No, let's do this one to be full name. Full name, email, and password. So email string, password string. It can be numbers. You know what? Let's add 1, which is going to be amount. Now, this has nothing to do with this, but for the sake of those who might be building a project that require to add to the user's account, that is why I'm adding this key. This has nothing to do with this schema, but let's not call it account, let's call it balance. So for those who might be building something that requires adding to the user's account, I'm doing this for your sake. The default value is going to be 0. The default value is 0, password required. Now, if you want to make unique, leave it like that, save that. And then the next is, now, one other thing I want to talk about is whenever this user account is created, you can get the current date and the current time when the user account was created. Now, by either adding a schema here for created that and updated that if you want, or you can just add comma, put another object here, and it's called timestamp. You set it to true. So if you add another object here called timestamp, set it to true, it means that whenever this user is created, I want to get the exact date and the exact time and when this account, this particular user was created. So that is what this timestamp will do for you. It's good. If you want to define your own time here and put it manually with date.now, that's also good too. But Mongoose gives you this so that you can create, you can handle that. So I can say const users is equal to new mongoose dot model, and it will be called users, and the schema will be the users schema. So I then export this module dot export is equal to users. So this is my schema. Any other thing missing? Nothing missing. It looks good to me, but if we have errors, we'll come back and fix it. So here, let's call this add users. Model to add a user. So we have our function here, we have our this, we have that. Now what it's going to be doing is just to return a response. Now it's not going to be doing much. Returning a response with a status of 200 and a JSON message that will say successful, or any message you want. So this endpoint is not doing anything yet. We don't want that. active. Now, yes, this is where some other persons might be building a project that require you to take the user, whether the user is active or not. So active will be a type of Boolean, which is going to be true or false. Sorry, I'm supposed to put type first. Type of Boolean, and by default, you want them to be true when the account is created. That's one. Other persons will be building a schema that require you to add user roles. So you can put a role to the user and set the type to be string. Yeah, then by default, this person is going to be a user, but there's going to be admin. Sorry, I was going to, yeah. So there's going to be admin, and there will be maybe a moderator if you want, any other, maybe any other user role you want. So like that. When you are working on it, you want to check who is a user and who is admin and who is a moderator and who is whatever you want to check. So that's why I'm adding this to the schemas. Default means when this user account is created, the balance that the user will see on start, that's when it is created, the balance will be 0. Their active will set to true. So you can change it later to false or true, but at the time when this account is created, the balance will be 0. Active will set to true, and the role will be user. That is what default means. So by default, by the time it's created, this will be the values for these keys. That's what default means. But later you are going to be funding their account, their balance, and this will be changing. Later you can deactivate the account or activate it again later, and later you can change this user to become an admin if you want, or change it to become a moderator if you want. So I have this, and to be sure that my server is running and MongoDB is connected, it's connected. So let's test out this endpoint and see that we are getting this response. I will remove all of this. Don't save. Just give me a minute so that I can zoom in. Let me reduce them and zoom in. Sorry. Okay. All right. I want to believe you can see it now. So here my port is going to be 8081, and let me confirm what the request type is. Let me confirm the request type is a GET request, which is not supposed to be. To add a user has to be a POST request. All right. So here I have a POST request 8081 and add user. If I send this request, I get a message that says successful. So my endpoint is working, everything is connected. Now we don't need to have this endpoint here. We need to break it down. So what we are going to do is break it parts by parts. I told you before, from this comma here to the end of this request type is your route or your endpoint. Now from this function here to where this curly braces end, not the bracket, to where this curly braces end is the function that will handle your endpoint. While this app here remains here, it doesn't go anywhere, it remains here. So what we're going to do is divide them, break them, since we are building with the MVC rule. Otherwise, you can build everything in this file, nobody will beat you, or just build one file, write one file and put all the functions there, nobody will beat you. But if you're going with MVC rule, you need to create that. So I'll first off create a function here, a file here rather, and I'll call it user controller. User controller for short, sorry, JS, like this. So back to this index file, I will copy the function first. Command X. Notice that the bracket that is closing it is remaining there. I didn't copy that part. So I'll come in here and say const handle add user is equal to, then I'll paste my function. Zoom out. Sorry. Okay, let me, which part should I zoom out? Here. Is it okay now? Drop a thumbs up if this is okay, or if I should zoom in. Is it okay? Is this okay, or should I zoom in, or which part should I zoom out? Is it the Postman or VS Code? Okay, I'll zoom in. Is this okay? All right. All right. I want to believe this is okay. If this is okay, drop a thumbs up. Oh, okay. Let me zoom in once more. Is this okay? All right. So what I did was to just copy the function, the part in the function, and brought it inside my controller, which of course we've done this before and you know what it is. So I will save that there and export this one. I say module.export is equal to, I will have more than one function, so that is why I'm exporting as an object. I'll save that. So back to my index file here, I am now left with the route here. So what I want to do now is come back here in my route folder, which is this one, this route folder. I'll create a file here and I'll call it user route.js. So user route.js, first thing first, I'll bring in express const, because I want to use the express router. I will explain what the router is. Require express, so I would then say const router is equal to express dot router. So what router means is this. If you look at this request is hitting on the app directly, which we don't want it that way. We don't want the request hitting our backend app immediately. We want to create a router, which is this, that will handle the request. So I will say router dot. So I will then copy all of this part, X, and keep it here. So instead of the app handling the requests, we have the router handling the requests. So here we are doing app dot. It will no longer be that way. It will now be router dot and router dot, and then we have the function to handle the router, which is this function here. I will copy it and bring it in here in my route. Sorry, just give me a minute. I don't know if he's on this call. It should be on the call. Mr. Ebi, if you're on the call, please. Mr. Ebi, if you are on the call, okay, he's not on the call. Sorry, he's supposed to be on this call. He's my supervisor and actually my boss too for this program too. So I want to bring in this function here. I'll put it here. And then make sure you are importing. So this is being imported from controllers the same way we do it in the normal index, but this time it will be handled by the router like this. So this is for the route, and you need to export this thing. So I'll say const module dot export is equal to router. So this is the router I'm exporting, the router that will be handling all the requests, and that is what I am exporting. So here now, how do we link it that the app will then call this thing? So if the request is sent, it should be the router that will handle it and not directly on the app. So how do we tell the app to start using this route, and then from this route it will start using these controllers? So what we'll do, we'll say app.use. Sorry, that should be use, and it should use the route. So I need to first import the route, which is this route. I need to first import this one. So const route is equal to require dot slash, where is route? Route slash user route. So I'll bring in the route and say the app should use this route. And to be sure that everything is working fine, I will send the request again and I'm getting a response. So what did I do? First, I defined my controllers here inside the controller folder. The controller is the function that will handle the request. That's the first thing. Any question? All right. That's the first thing I did. The controllers that will handle the request. So after the controller, the next thing is the route. Here in the routes folder, I created the user route, and what the route will do is going to be, you define the name of the route, but this time the router that is coming from Express will be the one to handle this request, not the app directly, but the router. And when the router picks up the request, it will call the function that is inside our controllers, this function, and make sure you are exporting your router. So if you export that, now inside our main app, we're going to be importing the routes, which is this. You import the routes from here and store them inside this variable called routes, and we'll tell the app to use all of those routes that are there here. So all the routes that we mentioned inside this router, all the route that we mentioned here. If you are going to have more than one route, you can also nest another route here if you want, or you create an index file here, import all of them and put them all into one, and then bring that one here. Any which way works. They are all working the same way. So with this, our route is working, but it's not complete. There's one final part of it. Now, this route is calling the endpoint directly. We can't tell whether it's a backend or it's a front-end route. So we need to indicate that before the route, there should be this part of it called /API. So this means that any route that is coming here now should have /API here. So you should have this part of it, API. So before this route, there should be API, which is what we have here. Before this route, there should be APIs attached to it. So if I save this, attempt this without the API, you see that I have errors because now it doesn't recognize this without APIs. So if I then put /APIs and send, you see it is responding now after adding the API. So this is how to build with the MVC rule. So what you're going to be doing is simply writing your functions in the controller and then creating an endpoint. That's all. You will not do this one again. This part is done only once. You just be writing your functions here and then you define the route down here. Any question so far? The router. All right. Any other question so that I can see if I will explain all of them together? Any question? Yes, I will explain the router again in the route part. Any question? The router. All right. All right. Any more questions? Router. All right. All right. Let's explain the router. So what we are doing is simply from the main app, which is here, to the controller, which is here. Let's remove the model. It's just like this. So in between this and this, there is a middleman, which is called the router. The app doesn't handle the request directly. The requests will be handled by a router or maybe express router. What do you mean by function? You need the function. The functions will always be in your controllers. And I'm sure we've done this part before. The functions will be in your controllers, but you're not importing them into your main file again. Rather, you're importing them into your route files here. So let's explain the router again. So I will remove everything here. Everything is gone. Now, in the routes folder, you create a file for a route relating to what you are working on. So we're working on users. These routes will be for users. If you're working for wallet, you should have wallet route. If you're working for what else? If you're working for blogs, you should have blog routes. If you're working for event management, you should have events route. So here we're having user route. So that's the first thing. Now, the router we want to use is coming from Express. So we need to first import Express because we are using the router that comes from Express or that come with Express. You know what? Before I make mistake, Express.router. So we are using the router that come with or from Express, anyone like this. So next thing is to tell the router to handle the request. So say router handle our post request like this. So to handle the post request, you need to define the endpoint. So I will say add user will be my endpoint. Now that's the endpoint. You also need to add the function that will handle the request if you get a request at this endpoint. So that function is going to be this function here. So what I can do is import it. And if I want to manually import it, I'll say const is coming from the choir dot slash dot slash controllers slash user controller. So inside it there is called handle user. So this handle user will be the function here now. So this, you have defined the route and you are telling it all right, this router is supposed to be small r, but the one that you are taking from Express is big R. So all of this router, if you have more endpoints here, they will all be small letters. But this one that is coming from Express is capital letter, like that. So you've defined your route, you've added the function to handle it, you want to export the route so that you can use it outside. Module.export is equal to router and save. Now you need to put this router here to tell your backend to use this routes here, these routes that will be here. So how do you do that? First, you need to import that file. I will import it again by saying const. My routes are coming from here. Here. So I take this, add it here. Sorry, give me a minute. All right. Welcome. I had to take water. So let's continue. You import all of those routes from the file you have it. We have it here, inside here. So that is why we're importing route from routes stored here. And we are adding it here. This part, we are asking the app to use all of the routes that will be in this file, which is coming from here and which is in this file. So it's going to be using all of those routes the way you define them, like this. But because we don't want to be adding /API to every single one of them, we don't want to be adding /API, /API for all of them. We decide to remove that API part. We decide to remove the API part and say before all of these routes, check that they all have APIs with them, like this. So that is what this part means. But if you want, you can be adding /APIs here to all your routes. Just add APIs if you want. But if you don't want to go this way, you can add it once. When you are saying app.use those routes, before you get to the route, you check whether they have APIs. That's all. So any question so far? And to confirm that everything is working fine, I'll send this request and I'm still getting a response like this. So any question so far? Any question so far? This is what we call the MVC. Now it's a lot. It's not that simple. Of course, like I said, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Or at least I know that with what the route we're going to have in a recording. So even if you don't understand it now, you can always check out the recordings. But for the route, what we did was we want to use this router, and it is coming from Express. So first you need to import Express. First, import Express, and then you define a variable called router here and set it to be the router that is coming from Express. So what you have stored inside here is actually this router. So then you call this variable here, which is your router, and call it to handle your request at this particular endpoint, and you add the function that will handle the requests. Then you make sure you are exporting router to be used in an external file. So here is the file where we want to use all our routes. So the first thing to do is to import that file called user routes from the routes folder and store it inside this variable called routes. And then you tell your app to use all the routes that are going to be inside this route file, like this. So it will use all of them. So I save this now, but we normally add APIs to our endpoints. That's how we know that it's a backend. We normally add APIs / APIs. If you go this way, nothing is wrong. You can actually go this way if you want. You can still do it like this if you want. But this will mean that you will have multiple routes. Maybe one is a GET request, the other one is a patch request, another one is a put request, and so on and so forth. You have so many requests, including a delete request. And all of them have API. You can do this. Nothing wrong with doing this. But a short way of doing it is, since this app is going to be using all of the routes, why not put it here and say, instead of adding it manually to every one of those routes, we add it here, because all of those routes are coming from here. So it means that for all of them, it will first add API. For all of them, it will first check whether they have API. For all of the routes. So there will be no need adding these APIs manually here. So that is why we add APIs there. So any question? If you want us to continue, please drop a thumbs up so that we continue. Any question? All right, thank you. So if you understand how to set up the MVC rule, that's all. That what we have done is we've completely set up the MVC rule and we are done with it. So we have finished setting up the MVC rule. We have no other need to set up anything again. When all of them will be added here, both the delete, both the patch, any route you have, what your job is to write the function that will handle requests and define it at the API. That's all you do. Write the function that will handle the request and define the endpoint. Write the function that will handle the request and define the endpoint. That's all. So, but for setting up MVC, we are done with setting up MVC. So, since we are done with that, we can then handle the request proper. How do we add the user? The first thing is to get the user details, which will be email, what and what are there. Sorry, I want to just confirm what's in the model. In the model, full name, we have password, we have now the balance. We're not taking the balance because it has a default value of 0. So it's when they want to fund their balance, they will tell us what they want to add to the balance. The active, we're not taking that from the user. By default, their active is set to true. And their role, the user will not be the one to tell us whether we should make them admin or make them a moderator. All of them will be users, except when we choose, we can then change their role from user to admin. We can do that. So what we are taking from them is just these 3 things: their name, their email, and their password. They are not responsible for sending us what their balance is. They are not responsible for sending us what their active value is. They are not responsible for sending us what their role should be. So we're just taking their full name, email, and password from the request body. So from the request body, we want to create a new user that will be new. What's the name of our model again? Users. Make sure that you are importing your model. So I'll say const users is equal to require dot slash model / user model. So I'll copy the user, new user, and pass in all of these requests into it. V. So when you add that, then you want to save. Now you should have a middleware. We are going to create a middleware that is going to make sure that they are sending these things. So, but let's just save the details now. I'll say await, and make sure that this request is actually async. Otherwise, you can't use await. Await new user dot save. Now, when you send the request, I want to also return the user. So I'll say user should be new user. So this is just a simple way of saving to the database. We're not hashing password. We're not creating tokens. We're not doing all of that. Of course, we already have a function that does that. So you can simply replace this function with that particular function that does that. The main goal of this class is just to show you how to build it using the MVC rule. That's it. The signifies. What's the signifies? Where is it? Where is this one coming from? What signifies? Where? I want to understand what this means. So we want to add these details to our postman and see what we're getting back. So in the postman, I'll change this to body. I already have a body. I make sure that it's set to raw and it's also set to JSON. So I have email, I have full name, I have password, but I don't need phone number and email subject. So I can remove these 2 and keep these 3. So this is let me just put my own name here, David Samson. And this is somebody's email. So I'll put, for example, example@gmail.com and send. So, okay, my server crashed. There. Now it says cannot destructure property full name as it is undefined. Now, I want to believe everybody knows why we're getting this error. If you know why we're getting this error, no, the order doesn't matter. You can arrange it however you want. Password can come first. The another thing can come first before the email. The order doesn't really matter. Yeah, the middleware. So I will use that opportunity to explain the middleware and the cause that we installed. If you remember, we had to install cause, which is, let me go to package.json. We had to install this thing called cause. This is also a middleware, and I will explain what this does. So I will come here and first of all add, you know what? Middlewares. The first one is app.use express.json. Like this. This is the first middleware, which is why we're not getting a response. Sure that this is, yeah, it's connected. If I send this request again, I have a user being returned. So, and if you check here, it's showing me created at. Now, this is 2024 6th. This is June, and it's 01, and here is the time. Now, this is the time format, the ISO time format. You can change it to any format you want with JavaScript using local time string, local date string, any format you want. But by default, this is the format it will send to you: the year, the month, the date, and the time. This is 24 hours clock, 15:51:41. So this created that and updated that is coming because we added that timestamp. If you add timestamp, it's going to tell you exactly when it was created. If you add a timestamp, and where is that timestamp again? In my models here, I added timestamp. So that is why you are seeing that created that and updated that. They are not here in our schema. But because you added timestamp, you're going to see the exact date. Now, the created at is the first time it was created. The updated at, it is if you make changes. Anytime you make changes, the created at will remain the same, but the updated at will change. So the updated at keeps track of any date you make changes to any of the information on this user. If you change their role, which is currently a user, if you change their active, if you change their balance, if you change their password, whatever you do, this updated that will be keeping track of that date, the date it was done. So that's what created that and updated that will do for us. So let's go back to the middleware. So we've defined the first middleware, which is this. The second middleware is the cause, app.use cause. So if you build your backend, and deploy it to the clouds. Now, the cloud is there to protect or secure your backend, that not everybody can make requests to it. You can't just wake up and create a front end and then send a request to a backend. Now, even though some backend have password, have tokens, have keys, that's one part, but by default, every backend you create is protected by the cloud storage. Sorry. It has to be imported. I forgot. You must import cause because you installed it, you have to import it. I forgot. Cause. So you have to be importing cause. All right. So that's done. So like I said, when you build your backend and you deploy it to the server, the backend is protected by default. npm JS. I wish I would have this cause here. Sorry, I wanted to type cause. So this is cause. What I'm looking for, I don't find it. How do I get it? How do I get it? How do I get it? Cross origin, cross origin, cross origin, cross origin. So what I'll do is say here, you can add some values here. Maybe asterisk, maybe the URL of your website, anything at all. So what I'm trying to explain is that when you build your backend and you deploy it to the cloud is going to protect it, that nobody can make requests to it. Now, if you add cause like this, the way I added it here now, you are telling the clouds to open the backend, that requests can come in to it. So if the cloud storage where you deploy this sees this middleware here, it means that this backend is ready to accept requests from anywhere, maybe mobile app, maybe website, anyone at all, like this. And if you define, if you define your URL here, I wish we had a definitive URL. If you define the URL of your website here, you are simply saying that it is only requests that are coming from this particular website that should be attended to. Any other request from anywhere should not be attended to. So what cause does for you is to define whether requests should be made to your backend, who should make requests to your backend, like that. So, but normally we leave it like this. Leaving it like this because you don't really know who will be or what website will be making requests to it, or if you're going to be needing a mobile app, because a mobile app doesn't have a URL address, like that. So if you keep it like this, you can get requests from mobile app, you can also get requests from website, you can also get requests from Postman, anywhere the request is coming from. But if you remove it, it means that the mobile app cannot make requests to this thing. It will be blocking it. Now, what cause means is cross origin. I wish they have explanation. Okay, they don't have explanation for cross origin. Cross origin means that a backend to backend are the same. They have the same origin. This is the backend, this is the backend. They are the same origin. But if you cross the origin, sorry, I'm just explaining it literally, not the professional explanation, but I just want to see if you can capture what cross origin means. If you move to a front end, they are not the same platform. They are not the same type of platform. A backend is different from a front end. So if you remove this backend will still respond to any other backend. Whether you put cause, whether you don't put cause, backend will always respond to backend because they are of the same platform, the same origin, the same, I'm looking for the right words. They are just the same. So, but another platform, like maybe a mobile app from Android, a mobile app from iOS, they will not be able to make requests to this platform. It's a different origin. It will block it. It will block that request. But if you add the middleware, then you are saying allow requests. This app should attend to requests. Anywhere the request is coming from, attend to the request. So it will not block the request again. But if you go ahead to specify the URL that you want directly in here, then it means that it is only requests that are coming from that particular URL that will be attended to. Yes. Any backend at all, so long as it is a backend. Backend will be deployed the same way. Anyhow you deploy Node.js, that's how you would deploy Spring Boot with Java. That's how you deploy Python, Django, any backend at all. That's how you would deploy all of them the same way. So for them, they are coming from the same origin. The way you deploy Node.js is the way you deploy Python, display where you deploy Spring Boot, which other one, Laravel. That's how you deploy all of them. So they are coming from the same origin. So they don't need cause to respond to each other because they are the same origin. They are coming from the same place. But if you have something on the front end and you're trying to make requests to a backend, they are not coming from the same origin. So you need to specify that this backend should respond to requests that are coming from a different platform, like that. So that's what cause does for you. But if you don't have this, now if you deploy your backend without this, you'll be getting errors that request has been blocked. Cross-origin policy, cross-origin errors, a request has been blocked. These are just like that. You'll be getting those errors. So whenever you see those kind of errors and you hear cause errors, it's because you didn't set up a middleware called cause to allow requests from other platforms, like that. Now, that is if there is not going to be a mobile app. If there will be no mobile app making requests to that backend, it is going to be only that website, only that one. If it's going to be only that one, then you can go ahead and specify the URL like that. I'm looking for a better way, but I think I've actually explained what cause is. It's not much, it doesn't do much. You don't need to be bothered about it. Whenever you have your request being blocked, just know that you haven't initialized cause. That's all. Were you consuming the API from a front end? If you are consuming from a front end, then it will be blocked if you have not set up cause like this. Be blocked. Also, most times if you get the endpoint incorrectly, so if you mistakenly type the endpoint wrongly and you are not adding, there's a function I was adding before. What that function does is to handle requests and then say this endpoint does not exist before. Let me add that function. Where will I add that function now? Add it here. So after this, I want to add the function app.get. It's going to get, no, let me not use app.get. Let's use app.use. So if you don't type any endpoint that falls to the endpoint that have been created here, I want to use a function and catch the error. I want to use a function that will take the request and take the response. Now this will run when there is no endpoint matching the endpoint you are sending. All right, sorry, if you are consuming from a front end, you need to initialize cause. But if you initialize cause now, the request will be sent. So this is what you need to do to initialize cause, but make sure that you've installed cause and you are importing cause. So what I want to do is this, and say for any request that is not matched, send a response.status, maybe 404.json, and send a message that will say this endpoint does not, this endpoint does not exist yet. Sorry, this endpoint does not exist. So what this means is that if it doesn't match this endpoint and it doesn't match any other endpoint that is inside this route, automatically it should fall down here and tell you that that endpoint does not exist. Now to confirm that, I'll just add an extra R here and send this request, and it says, sorry, this endpoint does not exist. So, but if I remove it and send my request, that my request is going. So now I haven't done much, but I want to believe from here now, if I ask you to build login, you should be able to build login the same way that it is still the MVC. You're not setting up anything new we've set up the whole MVC complete the way it should be. And we have actually initialized the route, just one route, but you can add multiple routes here, all of them here. You don't need to create another file except you are creating a route for something else, maybe wallet, maybe bookings, maybe events. Then you can create another route here. But if not, all your user routes should all be here, and all the functions to handle the user request should all be inside here and exported from here. So any question? The catch we do that for anonymous. The catch will not do that. Reason being, now where we added that thing, we added that here. There is no catch here. Let me comment this out and show. Let's comment this out, and then add an extra R here and send this request. Now you see, it crashed. The response was bad. So this means that if you are sending this back, the user's front end is going to actually crash because it's not sending. Now for our own, it's not crashing. Our own backend is not crashing. But for the user's front end, it's going to crash because the backend is sending them a response that is not what they're expecting or what they are used to. Imagine if you are somebody wants to throw something to you and you are expecting them to throw something you can carry, and then they sent you something you cannot carry. They threw something you cannot carry. That is what this thing means. They're expecting either a message, an error response, or error status, but we're sending back HTML page. So it means the front end is going to crash. How do they catch the HTML page and display the HTML page? They can't. But you can also do that. It doesn't. The front end developer can also handle that too. Of course, they should be able to learn how to handle errors that are coming unexpectedly, if they are using try catch too, and also if they are doing other error handling measures too. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're done with the MVC part. So, any question on this MVC? Any question on this MVC rule? Is there anything in these folders that you don't understand what it is doing, or what is inside it, or why it is there? Okay. Where are you seeing the models? This is / model means what? I want to understand what this / model. Where do we have / model? Are you talking about this model folder? Because I know that you've seen this model folder before, and you know that this is where your schema and your model will be. So I want to understand what this / model will mean. Sure, you get the code, you also get the recording. You can. There are different ways to do it. You can use if statement if it doesn't match, but what we are doing is we're not just checking. That is why now if you put this app.get, on top here before this main route, it means that this route will never run. It will always run here because it comes from top to bottom. This one will not even run. So let's try it. So I will remove this extra R and send the request. You still say, sorry, this endpoint does not exist, even though this endpoint actually exists. it will not get it. So that means that when it comes here, automatically it will fall to this one automatically. But the reason why we are putting it last is if you make that request and it doesn't match here, and it doesn't match anyone here, there's absolutely no point using if or else statements. By default, there is no other route left. So that is why we are putting it last here. It must come last, because if it comes first here, it will be the route that will always be returned like that. So if I send it again, I should get a response, and I have this. Now, even though we are not validating that the user should not be added more than once, but you can't do that. How you can do that is, of course, I've taught you how to do that. You need to first find the user. Const user is equal to await users dot find one. You're finding them by their email, and here you're checking if the user exists. If user exists, you want to return and a response with a status of 400 bad request, JSON message that will say this user account already exists, like this. So now what we're doing is just before you register a new, and I'm sure you know why we're doing this, and you also know how to do it. Before the user account is created, we want to check whether they already have an account. If they have an account, return a response that the account already exists. So if I send this, it will say this user account already exists. Now, it's not much, but the goal here was to build MVC, which we have achieved like this. Okay, we are importing the file from the model. Is this what you mean? Okay, we're importing the files from the model. Sorry, I'm going to push this file and you will see it too. You also the recording, you also get the recording, but your assignment should be, your project rather, should follow this format. So this is done. The next thing should be Git and GitHub. Now, it's not hard, even though I had to leave it. The reason why I left it is because I wanted you to get the main thing first, which is now Git and GitHub is compulsory for every backend developer, not just backend developer. There is no developer without Git and GitHub. Now, you may be using Git or maybe you might be using Bitbucket or any other one, but you should have a repository, or will I call it an account where you store all your code base. Now, it's not just for storing codes. It's also used to work with other developers. Now, it's not just to work with other developers. It's also used for inspirations and other things. Now, there are people who don't, people learn differently. Persons like me, I may want to build something, but I want to see how someone has done it before, like innovative. So some of us are innovative. We are not creative. We can't start stuff from, I don't say we cannot, I can't start something from scratch, but I like seeing, visualizing it, and taking it up from there to another level. So the GitHub, that's another reason why you have GitHub. If you want to book a booking platform, there are so many persons who have built booking platforms and they've deployed it. And if you type in the keyword you're looking for, you can also filter it down based on the programming language. I say I want the ones that are built with JavaScript, and you're going to see all the booking platforms built with JavaScript. And also the date, this was built this year, 3rd of January, and this was in 2013. You can also sort it by whatever you want, like this. So what I'm trying to explain is that you have access to people's codes and what they have done, whatever it is. So you have people have access to your codes, provided that you set them on public. So people have access to your codes too, and you have access to people's code. So that's another reason for using GitHub. So it's not just to store your codes, you can also learn on GitHub. And GitHub has other functionalities that I may not mention currently, but the two most important things for you, or three: one is to store your codes there, two is to share and collaborate with others, and three is to learn. Now, if you want to deploy your project too, using GitHub is a good way of deploying project too, whether it's front end, whether it's back end. You also use GitHub to also deploy your project in production. You still do that. So, but the way we use GitHub before was with drag and drop. Now we have passed that level of drag and drop. You need to have Git installed. You need to have Git installed because your project will not finish in one day. Your project will take maybe 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. But each week, we want to see what you have done. And how you've done it. So let's assume you are working with somebody. Let's say this project you're working on is a project you're working with in a company. Sometimes you can go to work, you work on your project, you push it to Git using the company computer or the company laptop. You push it to GitHub. Then you come back to the house, you have spare time in your hands, you can then clone your project again from your GitHub, continue working on it with your laptop in the house. And then when you are done, you push it again back to GitHub and then sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you go to the office, you clone your project again. So that system or that idea of pushing to GitHub, cloning it, pushing it again, cloning it is very, very important. The reason being, your project will not be completed in one day. And also you want your codes, the codes you've written, to be safe so that even if something happens to your computer, even if something happens to your laptop or maybe the company's laptop, the codes you have written, the project is still secured and you can work on them from anywhere. You can work on them from anywhere. So maybe with your house computer, with your office computer, with your toilet computer, and so on and so forth. Exactly. So that's what we use Git for. So how do we use Git? The first thing is to install Git. You need to first install Git. And when you install Git, now this is not for persons using Mac. This is not how you install Git on Mac, but I'm just giving you an idea of those who are using Windows. If you're using Windows, you click on it to download. And you download it. Now for Mac, you can't download it this way. I think so. You can. Yes, you can. You can download it this way, but it doesn't come with Git bash on Mac. So yes, download it this way and install. It works, but it's going to be using integrated terminal. But for those who use Windows, you will see Windows here, which is this. You click on it and you download. Now, how to set up Git? The first time you want to use Git will be asking you, who are you? First time setting up Git will be asking you, who are you? So you need to set up your name and your email on Git. So what do I mean? I mean, if you want to use Git, you need to first open the folder you want to work on, or maybe anywhere. Just make sure you open your terminal. That's all. I'm trying to open my terminal here. So, but for you that is using Windows, you have access to Git Bash. So if you right click, you will see Git Bash here. If you say Git Bash here, you open Git Bash. Now, when you open Git Bash, you want to configure your name and your email like this. Without this $sign though, without this $sign, without this $sign. So what you are doing is you configure git config like this, --global, and then you set your user.name to be whatever your name is or whatever you want to use as your name like this, and you hit enter. So you will not do the two of them at the same time. No, you will not do the two of them at the same time. You do the first one, you hit enter, then you do the second one, which is git username, user email rather. Then you set your email, whatever you want your email to be, .com like this. Then you hit enter. Now, if you don't configure your name and your email, Git will not know who you are. And also, it is very, very important that the email you want to configure is the email you used in your GitHub like this. It should be one of the emails you use in your GitHub or one of the emails you use in creating your GitHub account. So that's the first way to configure Git. Now, when you configure Git, how do you use Git? Let's try using Git. The first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I have git ignore. Now, Git is going to ignore .env. It's going to ignore node modules. If there's any other file you want it to ignore, you add it inside this git ignore file and you save it. So what I want to now do is to create a repo where I will be sending these files to. So I will create a new repo and I'll call it MVC like that. And I'll keep it to public and create. So here it is giving me the git commands that I need. So the first git command is saying git init to initialize git inside that folder. Now, what that means is, yes, you have a folder here, which is called the MVC. Now, when you initialize git init, you are creating another folder that git will be using. Okay. So what git init? Let me get it. Let me get to that part. So I will open my terminal here and let me just be doing it so that I will be seeing it. Clear this. So if I say git init, I'm trying to initialize git. So it's telling me, it says initialized empty git repository. So it is very, very important, exactly like npm init. So, but what this thing means is that it actually created a git folder. Now that git folder, I noticed that everything turned green when I did git init. Everything turned green, and I will also explain why they turned green. So you have your own folder. If you do git init, Git will also create its own folder. So now there will be two folders. Now, if you want to push your project to GitHub, it is the things that are inside the Git folder that will be going to GitHub, not the things that are inside your own folder. So initializing Git will be creating a folder for Git, but you also have your own folder. Now, the reason why you have this green is that when you initialize Git, Git is now telling you that you have files in this folder. So these ones that are green is saying that you have files here that should be pushed to GitHub. Now this one is still white because there is nothing inside. So there's no point pushing this one. That is why it is white. This one is also white because there is nothing to be pushed here. There's nothing. But these other ones that are green is because Git has created its own folder now. It is initialized inside this project. Git is now tracking everything inside your own folder and it's telling you you have important files here. Push them to Git. But you can't push them to Git if you don't add them to that Git folder. If you are pushing to Git, you are pushing the Git folder to GitHub. And if the Git folder is empty, what you are sending to GitHub will be empty, even though you have files here in your own folder. So what you need to do is say git add. Then you'll be adding your files to Git. For example, let's add controllers. So what we are saying is Git, which is this, add the folder controllers and everything that is inside it. So if I hit enter now, it has added that. How do I know it has added that? I can check the status with Git status. Now you see that controllers is in green because it has been added, but these other ones are in red because they have not been added to the Git folder like this. So the point I want you to understand is that when you do git init, which is what this GitHub is saying, git init will initialize Git inside your project. What that simply means is that a Git folder has been created in that project. And it is only the things that are added to that folder that will be sent to GitHub. If you don't add anything there and you just push it to GitHub, it will be going empty. Now we have added this by the name, but adding it by the name like this is tedious. You can't be doing that for all of them, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, which is why you must do git ignore. So how you add everything is git add dot. Git add dot means add everything in my own current folder. This current folder I have, add everything in it to GitHub. You hit enter. So you have to be sure that everything has been added. You check the status again with git status. And now you see all these files have been added to Git, but you've not committed them to Git. So the first thing first is to initialize Git. The second thing missing here is to add files. You must add files, otherwise it will go empty. So if you push your project and you see that your project is empty, like your files are empty, know that you have not added them or you didn't commit them, like that. So that's the two-step. The first step is to do git init. The second step is to do git add dot. That's to add everything to the Git folder. Now the third step, this part here is to create a README file. Now you can skip this part. I do skip it. If you don't want, you can do this. And what this will do is to just create a README file for you. But this is the important part, this third part, the commit. Here, it is telling you that changes to be committed. Now you have added these files. You've not added the changes you made in each of these files. The functions you wrote inside the controller, the function for the connect DB, the models and schemas. The file itself has been added, but the changes you made inside them have not been added. So you need to tell Git, if there is any new changes inside each of these files, please add them together, not just the file. Any other changes inside it, add all of them together. Yes, README is compulsory. If you are going to be explaining how the project works to anybody, you should have a README. That is how they know what your project is about. So you should have a README. But we are talking about how to push your project on a normal daily basis. Now, this README is done once. This part is done once. And you have README. Now, the Git init is done once. I will come back to this part. So, but the Git add dot, the Git commit, and the push, you can do it multiple times. And I will explain that later. So, this part, Git commit, is important so that if there is any new changes you made, it will also add those changes and then push everything together to GitHub. If you do not commit, your changes will not appear on GitHub. They will not. So what is this Git commit? Git commit and the commit message. The commit message will mean to describe what you have done. For example, my commit message could be changed button color to red. Commit messages are very, very important. The reason is this: if you are working in a team, your supervisors, your other colleagues, they want to know exactly what you did on the project before you pushed it to Git. So that if there is any clash, if there's any conflict, if there is any error, they know where to go and check. They know what changes that caused that error. So that is why a commit message is very, very important. You add a commit message so that they know exactly what you did, whether it was your fault or it is not your fault. And if it is your fault, they know where to go and rectify the error. That is why a commit message is very, very important. So for every time you push to Git, you add a commit message. I changed the color, I added this, I added the form, I integrated this, I did that, just like that. You add it. Now, there is no limit to the number of words you can use. If you have the time, you can write a long commit message. Also, you can make it short, summarize it however you want, but there must be a commit message, and I'll hit enter. So now these things have been committed. Notice that everything has changed to what? White. Because I have committed them to GitHub. To Git. Now, the things that are inside my folder are also in Git folder. So that is why Git is not showing me any file that needs to be committed there. So if I want to check now, I can check the status again. Git status. Now you see here it says nothing to commit, working tree clean. It means that everything that is in my own folder are also in Git's folder. So if I ask it to push now, it is going to push everything direct to GitHub like that. But let's check something. I will come to one of my files and just add something here. I'm not going to be adding anything. I just want to add space and save. So I added space. Now you see that here it is now showing a different color. It's now showing me a different color. If I check status again, let me clear this. If I check the status again, Git status, now you see that controllers is appearing in red. The reason is because even though the controllers are also in Git folder, the new changes I made now are not in that Git folder. How do you do that? You go back and do git add dot again. Git add dot. Now, you will not do the git init. And I will explain why you should not do git init. Now, you go back, you add those changes you made again, and you commit those changes again. So now, if I check the status, working tree is clean. So indirectly, what I'm saying is, for every time you write your codes, add them to Git and commit them to Git before you push it. So these three important steps, the three most important steps is to add, commit, and push. Add, commit, and push. Now, but these steps are for when you've done it before. The first time you are doing it, you must start with git init. The first time you are doing it, you must start with git init before the git add dot, before the commit, and before origin and pushing, like that. But after you have done that, the next three steps is to add, to commit, and to push. Three of them. 3 steps. So, in summary, the first time you are pushing to Git, it will take you, oh my God, I've closed that. It will take you approximately 5 steps. The first time you are pushing, 5 steps. The first time. The second time, it is 3 steps. What are the 5 steps? Git init, git add dot, git commit, git set remote origin, and git push. See that I skipped, oh my God, why do I keep doing this? See that I skipped this readme, and I also skipped the branch. I will explain what those ones mean later. So let's push this project. So I have committed, I've added, I've committed. So the fourth step now is to add this remote origin. What does this remote origin means? This remote origin means that this is the URL to my folder on GitHub. I am adding that URL to this repo, to this my project, so that anytime I say push, it knows exactly where to push it to. So it will not push this project to another repository. That is why the name of the repository is attached here, MVC, my username attached here. So it is going to GitHub, my account, to this particular folder. So that means that I am not telling this folder or this project where I want it to go to whenever I say push. Whenever I say push, this is where you will go to. So I have added it and I'll hit enter. So now you see that I don't have any errors. But some developers do it more than once, and that is where the error comes in. If I do it again, you see it says remote origin already exists. So now it already knows where to push, and you are telling it again to push to another place. You are trying to confuse it. That is why it's saying no. The remote origin already exists for this project. There is a place where this project is supposed to be pushed to. Why are you saying we should add another one again? So you don't add. Now, this becomes a problem if you clone somebody's project, your friend's project, my project, anybody's project. If you clone their project and you want to add your own repo, so you want to push it to your own repo, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult. So what you need to do is, instead of saying add, you will then change it to set URL. Set URL. So this means that it already has the URL, but you want to set a new URL. So the difference here is this add and the set URL. So the first time you are adding a URL, you just copy it the way it is, copy it like this, which is the add URL, and paste it in your terminal and hit enter. But if you want to change the URL, you need to then remove the add and change it to set URL with a new URL, and it will send. So the finishing part is this part. Now this part is important. Notice something. Here I have main. Here I also have main. This line is supposed to create a branch called main. Now I haven't talked about branch. We're going to talk about branch in our next class. I haven't talked about branch. So this project can have different branches. By default, it has a master branch. By default, it has a master branch. Now that master branch is also known, it just means the main branch too. It also means the main branch, but GitHub doesn't like the word master. So they will prefer that you create a new branch and call it main. That is the one they like. They want you to name the new branch main. But we didn't create main. You can go ahead and create it. You can also leave it. But the most important thing is any branch you create, that should be the branch you are pushing. So notice that we created main here. We didn't create it actually, but GitHub is asking us to create it. And that's why they are also suggesting that you push the main branch. But for our own, we did not create any branch. Now, if you are following me, you will see your branch name here in green, and it will say master for you. If you are following up, you see a branch name here called master. So that is the branch you want to push. But whatever name you create here, if you create development, you create it with your name, you create anything, whatever you write here when you are creating the branch should be the branch that you are pushing. So I will copy all of this and paste, but I will remove the main and change it to master. And I want to believe you know why I am changing it to master, because by default, your branch is master branch, and you can change it by creating a main branch or any other name, but we didn't do that. So it is still going to be master. If I hit enter, now it has pushed everything to GitHub. If I refresh this, you see that I have my files here on GitHub. This is how you do it. Now, I can come here again. Notice that, let me do something. I'll open my index file. You see my index file ends here. There is not much things, not much. I can come to my folder again and then add a change. Possibly add my name here. Add my name here. I've made changes here, but I have not added it to GitHub. Now, the first time you push, we did 5 steps. The second time, it has to be 3 steps. You don't repeat the whole 5 steps. Otherwise, you have spoiled the repo. It will not work well again. All right. If your default is main, that's also good. If your default is main, that's also good. So, but I've made a change. If I come here and do status again, maybe check the status, you see that my index is in red because Git is tracking my project. It knows that I have made changes here, but I have not added these changes to Git. No, the git ignore is also pushed. You didn't tell the Git to also ignore the git ignore now. Do you want to also ignore the git ignore? The git ignore file is just there to tell Git what files to ignore. So it will be going with Git anywhere because it's there to tell Git what to do. Ignore this. Now, if somebody clones this project and the project doesn't come with git ignore, the person will have to create their own git ignore and tell git what to ignore again. But the first time you set up your project, you tell git what to ignore. So if you clone your project again, you will not be telling git what to ignore. Git knows what should be ignored. Anywhere, whether it's on GitHub, you clone it to a system, to anyone, git knows what to ignore, because you're going to be using git a lot. You'll be using git a lot. Now, in the course of this project, I expect you to push 3 times at least for every week. Push 3 times. So the first time you push, we've done the 5 steps. Now the second one, we want to push the second time again. If you go ahead and do git init the second time, then you can't push to that repo again. All right, that's nice. That's nice. All right. So if you do git init again, you can't push to that repo again. I don't want to do it because if I do it, I have to create a new repo or maybe clone my repo and merge them like that, which is a long walk. So you don't do git init again. Rather, you should be adding. You should be adding. So it is only the first time that you will do git init to initialize git. Why? The first time you initialize git, and let's say that git is called our course rep, Sylvia. That's the git that is taking record of everything going on in this project. If you initialize git again, you have removed Sylvia and you have brought in Gabriel. Gabriel is now the new git. So the two of them are not the same persons. They are not the same git. They are not taking the same instructions. Now, the git that has been pushed to the repo the first time will not allow this second git to come and take over that repo again. So that is why you don't initialize git after you have. But let's try. If I do this, git init, no, let me do git init again. Now, instead of initialized, it is saying reinitialized, meaning I have reinitialized a new git. So it is no longer initialized. It is what? Reinitialized. So the first person who is tracking our project is gone. We have a new person here tracking the project. So if I go ahead to do git add dot, hit enter, and git commit, and say I want to push to that repo, git add origin. It tells me origin already exists. So I have to set it. I have to change it and set that URL and then try pushing, git push. Now it has pushed. So if you understand how to get around it, fine. But if you don't understand how to get around it, do not initialize git again. So now I have been able to push for the second time. If I come back here and refresh this file, I should see my name. Now I see my name down here. So, but what you would do, what you should do is just 3 steps. 3 steps, which is, for example, if I come to here again and add somebody's name, like Sylvia, and save it. All I need to do is 3 steps. The first step is to add, git add dot, to add everything. And the second step is to commit everything. And then the third step is to push. And it has pushed. 3 steps like that. So if I come here and refresh this again, you see that now I have Sylvia here. So this is how to use Git. This is how to use Git and GitHub. Any question? Any question on how? Now, it can be a lot. It can be a lot. It's not easy to understand everything at once, but it is good you try and understand. Yes, you can do git push like that. Yes, you can. So the reason why you don't initialize Git again, another reason is if you are working with people's projects, like you are working with people, with a group of person, one person is going to create an empty project and push it to GitHub, and everybody will clone the project. Everybody will clone the project. Now, how do you clone a project? Clone a project means download the project, but you will not be downloading it downloading sake. How you clone it is, now for Windows is different, for Mac is different. So all you need to do is just click on somewhere, open your terminal, wherever you want to store that project. Wherever you want to store that project. So you type git clone. You want to clone the project, and you type the address of that project, http://github.com. All right. Sorry for that interruption, network error. I'll share my screen again. Yeah. All right. Push to main. Now, when you fork it to project, which is, let me explain this clone first so that we know how to clone. How to clone a project is, first, you go to that project. Sorry, I wanted to go to MVC here. You open that project you want to clone. You copy the URL from here or from here. Anyone, just copy the URL and come back to your terminal, any terminal you are using, and paste the URL here. That's all you need to do to clone, and hit enter. It will clone the project. Cloning the project means it will download the project for you. Now, when it downloads the project for you, it is also downloading with the Git information. But the problem there is, if the project you clone, like here now, sorry, are you not seeing my screen? I thought I've shared my screen. Can you see my screen now? Are you serious? I thought let me stop sharing and share again. I have so many screens opened. Which one should I share? Which one should I share? Screen one. So can you see it now? Really? Why? What's going on? I'll stop sharing again. Sorry, let me share it again. Oh, I'm sorry. It should be network, but I will share again now. I'll share again now. So let me know when you can see my screen. All right. All right. All right. Good. So when I talked about cloning, you just need to copy the URL for that project, type git without this part, you just type git clone, and then you clone the project. It will download the whole project to your system. You don't have to download it manually. It will download everything to your system. So back to your question where you said is if it's possible to do this. Now, the thing is this, the Git, before you started using Git, you know we had to configure Git. We had to configure Git like this, meaning that it is only this person that can push to that repo that is created on that account. So when you, let me show you what I mean. I will come back here and find who should I find? Who's this person? Anas. Anas doesn't have any project. Who's this one? Sylvia the JC. I think this is your okay, this is cost rep. So what I can do is, let's say I want to take one of these things, one of this project here from her account. I want it to then be in my own account. I can click on anyone. Which one? Yes, it is safe. It is safe to clone anyone. Yes, it is safe. So what I can do here, now if I star it, I've given her a star, but I can click on this particular one and I say, where is it? Now, there are two ways here. This fork means I want to create a copy of all of these things to my own GitHub. Now it has become my own, even though she's the one that wrote the account. It is now my Git. It is now in my own account. That is what this means. So you are creating a copy of it. So I will click on it. And now you see it's asking me to the same process that we used to create a project. It's almost the same process, and I will create. So that has been created. If I go back to my project, it's actually creating, still creating. Now it has created. If I go back to my project, my profile, and come to repositories, you see the project. It is not mine. I wasn't the one that created it, but now it is my project. Although it is showing here where it's coming from, but it is now my own. So if I clone it here, I can push back to this particular one that is my own, not her own. And the branch is the main branch. So I can push back to this my own here, not our own. But we can sync, I think this is a new update. We can sync the two of them. And this is where pull request comes in. The idea of pull request. So if I click on sync, it will alert her whether she wants to sync her own to the update I made to my own part. Like that. So what other question? Yes, Git Bash is a terminal. It works as a terminal. I use Git Bash a lot on my Windows. Git bash. Even on my Mac here, even though even this is what you see, but this is actually Git bash. This is a terminal, but it has Git bash in it, like that. So this is Git bash. I use Git, and then what other question? Yeah, use Git bash. Git bash. Okay. It's like I did Git in it twice. That's why I stopped saying. What else? So, ladies and gentlemen, that is how to push to Git. Now, even if you don't understand all of these things I said, there is no need to worry. There's no cause for alarm. How to push to GitHub with Git. Gaskia, that's all you need to do. So you will see all the steps you need on how to push to Git, like that. So even if you don't understand, yes, it is. Git bash is actually Linux. Yes. So that is all. I think I have pushed the project, so I can share the project link with you. Sorry, not this one, but are you kidding me? Damn. Sorry. But this one, I'm getting so many calls. I don't know why. It could be because of this project. I know it's because of this project, but damn, this sorry, my time is up, and that's the reminder. So guys, I'll share this with you. If you have any questions, all right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll drop your project, also put the names of those who are working on the project. If you don't find your name, there's no need to worry. Just reach out to me and I'll add your name. So any question before we end today's class? So what we did was to build with the MVC rule and also learn how to push to Git, because drag and drop has ended. Now we are working on real life project. You cannot do drag and drop. We don't do drag and drop in real life project. You must push it with Git. You must push it with Git. All right. Thank you too. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you all. So, in the absence of any questions, can we drop a thumbs up so that we end today's class? Thank you very much. Thank you, Kostrep. Thank you, all of you. All right. Bye.